Hello, everyone. You're listening to the 805 Uncensored. We are a show on the Anti-Capitalist Podcast Network. This podcast covers a variety of topics. I'm getting a little bit of background noise. Can you guys mute?
I think it's Audra.
Okay, thank you. As I was saying, hello, you're listening to the 805 Uncensored, a show on the Anti-Capitalist Podcast Network. This show covers a variety of topics from music to politics, news, philosophy, and more. There are no limits, which is why we call ourselves Uncensored. So welcome. Please follow us on your podcast social media platforms of choice. This is panel number 18, discussing U.S., Iran, and Palestinian relations. And really excited. So thank you all for being here. We'll go ahead and start with introductions. Sharon, you're the first person I see, so we'll start with you.
Great, thanks. Hi guys, obviously Drain here, Iranian. I migrated when I was young, but it's always been, the fight's always been very, very much big in my heart. I come from a long line of leftists. My grandfather was imprisoned for being a leftist when there's a monarchy, and as you guys know, there's a lot of that happening continuously since then. I had the opportunity to get on a community radio show 2 years ago when the Woman Life Freedom movement really took off in Iran. And since then, I've had the opportunity to paint a mural and get to partake in a lot of different protests and activities and be here with you guys and have these conversations, which I'm very thankful for because the Iranian community feels very insular. A lot of times it feels like it's just kind of an echo chamber. There aren't a lot of English speakers having the conversations as much, especially in different kinds of spaces, like spaces with anarchist, thoughts. So it's very special to get to be part of the conversation.
Beautiful, thank you. We always love talking to you. Up next is Kraig.
Hi, yeah, I'm Kraig, host of Voices from the Left podcast. I live in the belly of the beast here in America, and it's weird being the only left in a family of white liberals. Of them are as like shit Libby is like we should keep bombing Palestine or anything like that, but they don't appreciate me being a decolonial anti-capitalist. I'll just leave it at that.
Always love talking to you. Enjoy your perspectives, Kraig. Learn a lot from you. Thank you. Up next is Izzy.
Hi guys, my name is Isra. It means night journey in Arabic. I go by Izzy since I live on Turtle Island. I'm 5th generation Palestinian. I would describe myself as scientific communist over capitalist. So much.
Sorry, you cut out on me a little bit. Could you repeat what you said? I'm so sorry.
No worries. I just said that I identify more so as scientific socialist and Pan-Africanist and communist, but more so scientific socialist versus strictly, Marxist or European westernized understanding of egalitarianism and all that jazz. But yeah, basically communist over capitalist. It took me a long time to figure that out, being 5th generation on Turtle Island in the United States. Of course, believed in the American dream and all that jazz. And then, unfortunately, even with me knowing a lot of my history, as far as being Indigenous Palestinian and being taught, obviously, our history and our ways and lifestyle and philosophy and all that jazz, it was unfortunately only more recently that I really understood where my tax dollars were going and the fact that I was contributing to a lot of the problems over there. But yeah, that's why I mentioned that.
Well, thanks again for being here.
Thanks.
Heather, you're up next.
I'm Heather. I co-host the 805 Uncensored. We've been a little bit on hiatus since Jordan has been overseas, but I'm really glad that you have all come here today and really excited to hear everyone's perspectives on everything going on in Iran. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Audra, you're next. You're on mute, girl.
Kraig messed it up for me. All right. Hi, I'm Audra. I am Audra White. I'm about as white as you can get. And I am originally from Missouri, where I was raised in a staunch Republican household. And I voted both parties and even independent. And I identify now as more of a conspiracy theorist and a spiritual mentor. So I'm trying to kind of rise above it, and I'm living over here in Europe between The Hague and Brussels. I'm the daughter of a former politician from America, and I'm partnered with a former politician here in Europe. So politics has always been near and dear to me. I am a writer and a yoga teacher, and I teach mindfulness, and I'm trying to promote advocacy for human rights and raise our frequencies to a higher level so we can continue to evolve without being oppressed.
Thanks, Audra. You bring a lot of valuable perspectives, especially in this time. So much appreciated. And last but certainly not least, we have Aleyah.
Hi guys, it's been a while. I think the last time I was on a panel with you guys, it was either 2023 or 2024. So definitely it's been a long time. I'm excited to be back. I'm a community organizer from Ventura County. So that's how I know Jordan and Heather, because we're all from the same little community here where everyone kind of knows each other. I use any pronouns, so I won't get offended with whatever pronoun you choose. I've been reflecting on what I think I would label myself as, because I don't think democratic socialist is quite right. And anarchist feels too politically charged with like a lot of expectations that come with that. But if I had to say where I was leaning, I'm leaning closer to anarchism for sure. And I have a ACAB tattoo appointment scheduled for literally right after this panel. So I'm excited. I am here because I really want to talk about the perspective of U.S. Americans. I've been seeing, especially as a young person, I'm 22, I've been seeing a lot of TikToks of white kids that feel bad about what is going on in Iran right now, and they're like apologizing and they're making like public apologies. And while I think that that is phenomenal, because we've never seen Americans apologize for what their government does, I have also seen a lot of people on TikTok say, I'm so sorry, please don't bomb us. It's our government, not us. And I don't think that's fair. I think that a lot of Americans don't realize that their complicity and their tax dollars actually do have an impact on the lives of others around the country. Ignorance causes exactly what we're seeing here today. So I'm here a little bit to roast my generation and people with my same skin tone as well. So that's kind of why I'm here today. But I'm really excited to talk to everybody about your opinions and, hear from people that are impacted by it directly as well. Thank you.
Let's fucking go. I'm really glad that we've stayed in touch and you're back. Okay. I think I got everybody. I would like to start with just 10, 15 minutes of opening statements, discussions, if anybody has something that they'd like to start off with. I'm sure we have a lot on our minds. I'll leave the floor open. Why don't we start with you, Sharon? You're the Iranian on the panel.
I actually was going to say I have a topic that I could throw in that we could start the discussion with. That would be a good opener.
Yeah.
I was just reading a couple hours ago that lawmakers voted against advancing the where is it? There was a notable there was a resolution that they were voting on about the U.S. Like reigning in power against Iran or whatever it was called. Let me see. The Iran Wars Power Resolution is what it was called. And so the U.S. Senate ended up rejecting it. And it was pushed by the Democrats, of course, like way too late, an entire eon too late, 2 weeks ago. but they ended up actually rejecting it. And anytime it has been brought up before, apparently more Democrats actually did go for it, but not this time. So I think that's interesting to see that kind of shift in the politics in America. I know last time we talked about how whenever the US has had a platform when it comes to humanitarian things in the world, they've at least made a statement about Iran and the Islamic Republic regime's treatment of Iranians. This year they did not, and now they're not really reining in any of their, war efforts. So I think it's just interesting that the language is changing, but they're still saying the same thing on the surface of, oh, we want peace, we want deal, we want this. It's just, I think it's a very good place to kind of stem from.
Any responses?
I think what's interesting about this situation, and I saw that news also about the war powers bill that was blocked in the Senate, and then there was also a motion to impeach Trump in the House over the bombing last week. And what is notable to me about it, first of all, are the number of Democrats that have sided with Republicans to block both of those efforts, including, this is the 805 Uncensored, our congressional representative Julia Brownlee sided with Republicans last week to kill any accountability for that. But in addition to that, I think it's especially interesting to see who has traded in stocks over the last couple of weeks in war bonds and weapons manufacturing. And so I think that like a lot of what we're seeing right now, and it's also with other issues like immigration, is all performance, right? And if you want to know what's really going on, just look at their stock portfolios and their voting records. And I think it's ultimately all bullshit. I'll stop.
Always follow the money. You can always figure out who's in the wrong by just following the money. And on this, I also want to point out, because I'm always somebody that believes that if you have a platform, you need to use it to talk about action as well, not just yapping. Spotify, the CEO, just invested like a ridiculous, redonkulous amount of money in military AI as a result of what is going on right now. And so, if you have a Spotify account now and you're paying for premium, now's the time to cancel. There's a section on when you go to cancel, it says, why did you choose to cancel? In there, put down that you do not support your subscription dollars going towards funding a war that kills children, civilians, moms, dads, etc. And also that they laid off a ton of their employees, replaced it with AI, and Spotify has gone down significantly since then. They also don't even pay their artists. So no reason to use Spotify to begin with. But if you have it, and you haven't had a push enough to cancel your Spotify premium account, now's the time.
Spreading the good word. Yeah, I think it's very notable to talk about the money going towards the war infrastructure, because the main purpose of having this whole conflict with Iran and having different regimes in power that create and continue and maintain conflict, it ends up feeding that war machine more and more and more and keeps it going. So there is no benefit for there to be peace in the Middle East unless it's owned by someone else and they're sucking it, of its resources. So we've seen that it would be unprecedented for anything to be for freedom at this point. But the conversation seems to stay that way, and a lot of people are confused. So it's good to know that there are spaces where people are having the right conversations.
One thing I thought was interesting about the introduction of the impeachment articles by Al Green is that they were specifically about Trump not asking Congress for authorization. That's all they were about. They weren't about any of the other like gross misconduct in violation of the Constitution, right? They did none of that. They apparently care enough about than being asked if we should bomb Iran or not. Like,
Well, I think it was
It's just
designed to
nonsense.
fail. Yeah.
Oh,
I think-
100%.
Yeah. There was
Even if
Preparatory.
yeah.
yeah, even if it didn't get tabled, right?
Yeah.
And that they actually voted on it, it would have got voted down anyway.
Yeah.
But, you know, just
Well, they want to reserve the right, just like when all the bombings, a valid point, all the bombings that Obama engaged in, right? They want to reserve the right to do that again in the future. And so I think it was designed to fail. But yeah.
They've started to manufacture that consent from different angles, which is what's interesting. They've just thrown things out, and one of them's going to catch. Sleeper cell, nukes. Like, let's go. Which is it going to be?
It's also not lost on me the action and lack thereof that's being implemented by the Supreme Court. I mean, I keep on going back to the fact that they said that Trump is immune to all official acts. So, not that I'm opposed to impeachment. I would be in support of it, but honestly, what the fuck is the point? Because if we're going off of how that language has been worded by the Supreme Court, what is the purpose of impeachment? It seems like the executive branch is immune.
The problem seems to be bigger than just Trump.
oh God.
Yes.
Yeah, the whole conservative legal project.
I mean, honestly, just go right to the
problem.
roots and take the whole colonial structure and pull it out of every single continent, and then we should be okay to start back again.
It's just such a stupid, like, oh, we'll just get rid of the leader and then everything will be fine. Like, where do we even begin with that classic liberal nonsense?
Reform, Jordan, reform.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm
Exactly.
not my soapbox.
No, it's okay. No, you're going down exactly what I was going to emphasize too, which is that are still grasping to the false hope. Honestly, it's just kind of funny. I know we got to try where we can. That's why everybody's so excited about Zohran Mamdani and everything. But it's still hope that for what? Like, this is beyond. I think language matters. That's something I was going to mention today. Is people are still so focused on the micro aspects. A war, using terminology like war, it's not valid. It's not really a war. It's a war against the whole world. They are keeping the whole world hostage by playing this game of chicken about nukes and all that jazz, when they're forgetting the whole thing, which is that greater object is from beyond the Euphrates to beyond the Nile, and that they're going to use nuclear power to redirect the Suez Canal, and that the Mediterranean Sea is cooking, and that the Earth is cooking right now. Like, there should be a little bit more urgency than sitting there still thinking that we're going to win within the system, So that's just...
I forgot what I was going to say. Come back later.
I mean, I'm glad that you brought up Zohran because I wanted to make a point about the levels of Islamophobia that we're about to reach. And it was already before that too, just given everything that's happening with Iran. So, I mean, I was a kid during 9/11, but I still remember all the rhetoric from that era, and I feel like it's just magnified now with social media, and things are going to continue to get even worse.
Definitely. Well, and it's already ramped up immediately since Zohran won the primary.
The only
He hasn't even been elected mayor yet, and they are full on off the charts, like Islamophobia and everything else. They're too far gone.
The only great thing is how terrified he's making the rich feel.
Oh, like, yeah, I love that.
Get fucking used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, between Zohran and the Iranian war and sleeper cells and all that, it's actually really interesting. Is I got here 6 months after 9/11 is when we migrated here, and I have family members that look a lot more Iranian than I do, and so I've seen it happen in real time, and now it's like this weirdly familiar deja vu again, and I have this like reeling in my skin, and I'm not even that obvious, but I know what it means. And then seeing the video of it even went as far as Russia. I don't know if you guys saw that horrifying video where there was an 18-month-old with his mom that fled to Moscow because of Tehran being bombed. She's getting some luggage. He's just standing with this little suitcase. He's as tall as this carry-on, and this giant Russian man walks up behind him, literally looks around him, shoulder to shoulder to make sure no one's watching, picks up this child and slams him down on his head. And that kid went into a coma. And that's just like, it just started, you know what I mean? And now they're telling people to arm themselves because of your neighbor might be one of those sleeper cells. Like that language, like we said, language is very important, is terrifying because there's so many people that language goes into their brain and it comes out in this action that's horrifying. And so now with everything with Zoran and all the memes that we've seen, it feels like a deja vu again. And it's hard not to think that at least one of these, you know, wet spaghetti noodles they're throwing at the wall to see which one sticks is going to stick. And there's going to be that consent, at least enough of it to warrant ambiguity to keep going.
I really feel like the propaganda has worked in the United States, like easily. I was talking to somebody who's like 20 years old recently, and he was telling me about how, like, all the way on the other side of the country, and he was telling me about how like propaganda was so ingrained like in their education, to the point where he literally like thought that Asia was some like third world like place, an entire continent. And it reminded me of somebody that I went to high school with. We took the same high school classes, and I was colonized by Spain. I was like, why do you think Latin American people would speak Spanish? What other reason would a European colonial language be the primary dominant language of an entire subcontinent if not for colonialism? And so I feel like the lack of education that breeds propaganda in the United States has been so strong and so effective that like they're absolutely terrified of people educating each other in non-traditional means. Social media, TikTok, Instagram, those have been phenomenal ways for young people to get, yeah, exactly. It's like, why, like, literally exactly. Anyway, it blows my mind as a young person seeing old people repeat the same rhetoric from 9/11 now today. Like literally people are saying like, oh, but they had nukes, so Israel had to. Netanyahu's been saying that for 30 years. 30 years. Like, how does it not click in your mind? And I saw a tweet and I loved it. And I just want to like print it into everybody's brain. And it basically said, like, if you're an adult, it's not okay to fall for the same propaganda that you fell for.
Yep. Right.
For the war, you know, in the Middle East beginning in 2001, in 2002. It's not okay to be that uneducated. You're choosing to close your eyes and shove your head in the sand because the education's all around you at this point. In the past, you know, pre-social media, pre-internet, it was easy to be uneducated. It was easy to not have access to a formal education. It was easy to have, you know, limited books in your library. But now, with how easily accessible this information is, if you're still choosing to feed into the propaganda and not be willing to unlearn all this racist information that's been shoved in your head since a young age, you're a part of the problem. You're absolutely 100% a part of the problem. And it's not just that it's problematic that you're uneducated for the simple fact that you're uneducated. It's problematic because being uneducated results in other people losing their lives. People's lives are on the line, fleeing to others. It's not okay that you don't know about that. You have to know about it. This is happening in real time in front of us.
Is where you gonna go or?
Yeah, Izzy, you were next.
Well, you guys touched on some things I was already going to say, you know, but I will reiterate, like, it's funny, you know, it just depends where the algorithm takes you. It depends on who you're hanging out around, because you would think that it wouldn't be so easy for people to still believe the same old thing. But unfortunately, you know, people just repeat whatever their parents say. So it just depends. Some people still live in rural areas and the algorithm took them down Zionist, you know, propaganda, and it worked, you know. And it's kind of funny how even the mailers, anti-Zoran mailers, like enhanced his beard. Like, I can't get over that one, to be honest. Just how sick these microaggressions actually aren't micro. They're that are violent. Go ahead.
That's, absolutely. It's definitely locational, socioeconomic, and algorithm. Algorithm's like the new version of it, right? So anything that you're looking into, it just keeps feeding you the same information. And you have these people that aren't very familiar with how to use these devices or how to tell the difference. And it's fascinating because it brings me to like the Iranian population, because we have quite a bit of indoctrination as well, because of propaganda intentionally over generations. But you have 70% of the population that's under the age of like 30 or 35, I think. So you have all these people that know how to use social media, that know how to look at news overseas and all over the world, that know how to then, take their stories and tell the world. So that's changed a lot, and I'm thankful for that. But it's unfortunate to see the indoctrination all over the world with the education system, because you've got Iranians that are very pro-Israeli, that are Zionists, that you've got Iranians that are, anti-Palestinian just because they're Arab. It's just all kinds of things that you see, and it's very divisive and very intentionally so.
Go for it, Audra.
All right, so I'm going to chime in with the European perspective here, even though I'm American, I'm also Dutch. And I've been voting in the Dutch elections since Mark Rutte, who is the head of NATO now, came to power. And I voted for him in my very first Dutch election after I got citizenship. And I was very pro his party and politics. And then as we moved into the Trump era in 2016, it was like, wait a minute, something's going on here. This is a global spread. And what's happening here is a spread of propaganda and populism. And I started noticing within the Dutch population also that Mark Rutte was losing popularity. And so by the time 2020 lockdown, people were really unfavorable to what the government was doing. And the government did fall in 2021 while Rutte was still in power. And he remained in power because the way that the government works here, we have to have these elections and there's a coalition. It's not just red versus blue. That's not how it works here in Europe. So after the government fell, he stayed in power and in position for another like 18 months and was still running the country as prime minister. And then the government fell again in like 2022, late 2022, and he was removed, yet to be the guy's States of America, since the United States of America in 1950s was like the best of the best. So the EU is literally the European Union of the states of a united governance, right? So what we have here is a military industrial that World War III is going to come in a multifaceted fashion. It's not going to just be a war with arms. It's also going to be technologically fused, and it's also going to be a war on spirituality and religion and faith-based. So what you have now is people who are having to question their morals, their ethics, their values, and who they are as a human, and how they value other humans, and how we can equalize this, right? So it's debunking this systemic problem that is a global problem that is a result from colonialism. And colonialism has always been worshipped and celebrated as a fuel to get to that capitalist model. But why? Why are we all still buying into this? Why are people still shopping from Amazon? Especially after we see all of the protests and the pushback in Venice, you know? So people are becoming a little bit more sensitive, and they're understanding, oh my gosh, you know, I don't have to play this system and be a participant in this matrix, this game. And it's very much laid out for us because it's easy, but you have to take a different road, and that road you start to struggle on. You start to lose your friends, you start to become super opinionated, you start to be the voice that is differing from the masses in the mainstream. But as soon as you start to plug out of that, you'll see that everyday people, we're quite an educated society now, and I'm talking globally, right? You've got a lot of people that are in Asia that are highly educated, even more so than the Americans, which were once governing, that we were the educated society. So there's no easy answer to find a middle solution here and a midline solution. But obviously, we're looking at a depiction of how we're going to delayer the core values of who we are and really systemically break that down and saying, okay, we've got to come together hand in hand. We've got to unite. And what is going to be that common denominator that unites us? Is it going to be love? Is it going to be peace? But unfortunately, our world leaders are all about warmongering because it brings them money. The economy never actually fully recovered from 2008. We had a little bit of an increase in 2012, but you know what happened? They just printed more money. And now we have digital currency that's completely disrupting everything. So like, I think it was Aleyah that said, follow the stocks, go and watch the stocks. I plugged out of mainstream media a long time ago, and I get a lot of my news shamelessly from TikTok. And it shocked me right after Iran was bombed, you saw a speech that Bernie Sanders was delivering on the 21st of June to a college somewhere. And somebody shouted from the crowd right when he was getting ready to speak, we just bombed Iran. And he was like, stopped his speech, and then you see some little assistant run out to his pulpit, and he gives him the papers, and he was just shaking his head. This is the reality, that we are actually getting our news now from everyday commonwealth. We're no longer even able to rely upon mainstream media, but yet people are still tuned into what's popular. People are still wanting to buy on Amazon because it's the easiest, the most convenient way. But we have to stop that. We have to start thinking for ourselves and being more authentic. All right, I'm done.
Convenience kills community. Absolutely, it does. And that has been the biggest like tool of propaganda used against my generation, probably aside from like e-vapes. You know what I mean? Like, aside from moving cigarettes to electronic, like digital versions that have little video games attached to them, like, I think other than that, the biggest piece of propaganda that has been shoved down our throats is that everything in life should be convenient and that everything you do should be to make your life more convenient. We're constantly on TikTok, on social media, are seeing hacks of how to make life easier for ourselves. And Amazon getting stuff delivered, for example, is one of those things. The instant gratification that you just said, that you just put in the chat, I think that has had such a detrimental impact on the development of young children, especially because like we're seeing so many young kids with problematic and behavioral issues now more so than ever in the past. Like, anybody that works with children these days can tell you that, you know, kids are calling their teachers Alexa, not mom, because that's who they're getting their education from. When they ask a question, they don't ask their parents anymore. They ask the Alexa in the room. So because of that, is polywoke. Because of that, we're seeing so many of like the idea, like you just put in the chat, of young people having to work multiple jobs to have side hustles be such a like commonplace thing. I have 3 jobs right now. Like, what the hell? Like, why do I have 3 jobs? That's ridiculous. And everyone my age has at least 2 jobs. That wasn't common when I was in high school. When I was in high school, like, kids were literally able to like make the money that they needed, the bread that they needed to bring home from working at freaking McDonald's. You know, now there's a joke running around of, oh, just put the fries in the bag, bro. Just put the fries in the bag, bro. Working the job is like somehow a like insult to our generation. You know what I mean? Like our generation wants to be able to live a life where we don't work and we're able to just take benefits from everything around us. And honestly, if we weren't dealing with capitalism, that wouldn't be a terrible thing to expect. You know, we shouldn't have to be working ourselves to the bone to be able to afford rent and to be able to afford groceries and to be able to afford car insurance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The reason that things are so overpriced right now is because of corporate and CEO greed. Simple as that. Like we have seen it, like the inflation that we're seeing right now is man-made, bro. Like it's ridiculous that our gas prices are this expensive. It's ridiculous that our groceries are this expensive. Period. Love the book recommendation, How to Stop Fascism. I just think that like the propaganda, and I know I talked about this already, is that it just works. The propaganda is working. And if we want to beat the convenience propaganda, we have to focus on community. Because yes, it sucks if you have to drive to the grocery store to get your next door neighbor some eggs because they can't leave their house. But when you are in a position where you can't leave your house, you know that you're going to be able to call your neighbor. We don't have those types of relationships anymore because there is no type of community. It's a dog-eat-dog world. And I think, like to your point of what's the middle ground, where do we start the fight? It's in our community. It's going to be our next door neighbors. It's going to be our parents. It's going to be our sisters and our siblings and our brothers in this struggle against capitalism. It's going to be in our community. And that's the only way we'll be able to go forward.
I agree. And there's one thing that I want to bring up that I think will take us into the next topic as well, is that it's interesting how much the US, from locations where it's obviously got its fingers in, learns what to do then to the US in order to control the population, suppress, voices, whatever it is, and eventually what weaponry, what sort of, CCTVs, whatever it is. It basically is learning from its damages across the world on how to act here. And we see that because they just pretend like other places are their playground, just like the US has meddled in Iranian politics over and over and over again, and then looks at us like we're a bunch of savages and need help getting our shit together.
Anything else people want to say before we move on to the next topic? Okay, I also just want to make a side comment too. Like, how did the war in Iraq begin besides propaganda? It's because most Americans don't know the difference between countries in the Middle East. And it's the same thing with Iran. Like Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, they might as well all be the same, right?
If I can add that there's a group in Ventura County of college students right now working to make their college education affordable and accessible to other students, and it's called Liberation Education. If you guys just wanted to plug them real quick, they just held a phenomenal educational meeting like 2 nights ago on how Iraq, Iran, and ICE are all related and tied into mass incarceration and the war on drugs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So definitely go check out Liberation Education if anyone needs more.
Awesome, thank you. Kraig, you were going to present on U.S. imperialism in Iran and just go over some history.
Yeah, time for some exposition. All right. During World War II, the United Kingdom, the USSR, and the US all became involved in Iranian affairs, including the joint Anglo-Soviet invasion of Iran in 1941. And the British-owned Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, otherwise known as AIOC, which was much more lucrative for the British than it was for Iran. And at the same time that was happening, Iran was a constitutional monarchy ruled by the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. In March of 1951, the Iranian parliament passed legislation supported by Mohammad Mossadegh to nationalize the AIOC. They want to recoup the dollars they're losing to Britain for the oil that is being extracted from them, right? Too much money was going to Britain and not enough money was going to the Iranian people, which this is, anyone who's paid half attention knows this is a thing that happens because of imperialism everywhere around the world, not, but I digress. About a year and a half later, Mossadegh was elected prime minister. This caused international business concerns, who then boycotted oil from the nationalized Iranian oil industry. And this also, of course, made Britain and the West, quote, concerned that Mossadegh was a communist, which I don't know if he was or not, but I also don't care. Like, so what? But this is American imperialism, so they hate anything that could lead to socialism or communism. They hate it. So then in 1952, the CIA and Britain supported candidates for the Iranian parliamentary elections that were loyal to the Shah and not Mossadegh, which garnered little success as I don't know how many, but there were plenty of parliament members loyal to Mossadegh who were elected anyway, despite that support from outside influences. Then in late 1952, shortly after Eisenhower was elected, the CIA launched Operation Ajax. And the intent of this was to remove Mossadegh, who, again, was democratically elected. And they wanted to try to persuade the Shah to replace him using diplomacy and bribery, which led to the 1953 Iranian coup d'etat, otherwise known as regime change. The coup reinstated Mohammad Reza Pahlavi as an absolute monarch and significantly increased U.S. influence over Iran, including American companies who gained considerable control over Iranian oil production, taking around 40% of the profits. The Shah remained in power until 1979, when years of political turmoil caused by the Shah's attempts to liberalize the government led to the Shah being overthrown. And that's one sentence about him liberalizing the government, but there's so much more to that. A lot of protests, a whole bunch of stuff. We just don't have time to get into all that. But I encourage anyone that listening to look it up because it's pretty fascinating. On February 1st, 1979, Khomeini returned from exile and assumed leadership, while forces loyal to him, fought in armed combat against the loyalist forces of Pahlavi, and eventually won. So Khomeini was, reinstated then. Since then, the West has heavily sanctioned Iran, and those sanctions targeted investments in oil, gas, petrochemicals, exports of refined petroleum products, business dealings with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and it also encompassed banking and insurance transactions, including the Central Bank of Iran, shipping, web hosting services, and domain name registration services. There were also subsequent UN resolutions and that expanded sanctions against Iran. But the most, and this is what ties into what's currently happening, the main thing the West wanted to prevent was Iran's capability to enrich uranium for nuclear weapons, because they've always been worried about that. Let's see.
And a lot of that has to do with Israel, which I'll get into after you're done.
Yeah. So all of that culminated in April of 2015 with Iran entering the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action with the UN Security Council and the European Union, which then led to an agreement with the International Atomic Energy Agency for Iran to constrain its uranium enrichment to civilian purposes only. And that agreement took effect on January 20th, 2016. Then it's of note that I think that was inauguration day for Trump regime number 1. So during the first Trump regime, he withdrew the United States from that pact in 2018 and imposed further sanctions that applied to all countries and companies doing business with Iran and cut it off from international financial systems, rendering that old deal null. Also, during the first Trump regime, the U.S. assassinated Iranian Major General Qasem Soleimani. That was on January 3rd of 2020 in a drone strike. And then we'll fast forward to present day, June 21st, 2025, so last weekend. The second Trump regime joined Israel in illegally bombing Iran nuclear sites, claiming that the Iranians were very close to having nuclear weapons. Despite Trump's own director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, saying in March of 2025 that Iran still does not have nuclear weapon capabilities.
Yeah, I'd actually like to play that audio from what exactly Tulsi said.
Do you have it?
Continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. The IC continues to monitor closely if Tehran decides to reauthorize its nuclear weapons program.
Yeah, go ahead, Sharon.
Just a couple of notes on the nuclear program. One, it's been noted per news that they didn't actually destroy their nuclear program. And then two, I'm reading everywhere that honestly all they've done is further their efforts to build nuclear weapons, probably ramped up the nuclear weapon building now, or it's just driving it further underground, because in Isfahan, the nuclear facilities are actually pretty underground, and the damage they said they didn't do as much damage as it would have if they were pretty surface level, but they're already kind of underground. So it's not really, it seems more like really silly posturing at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. And I just want to point out, with the little history I gave there, I realized there was a whole bunch of stuff that happened besides sanctions in the 80s and 90s leading up to today that I just didn't cover, because that would have been a 3-hour show by itself. So like, as I encourage anyone to look it up if they're interested in the meddling the United States has done in the region for the last 90 years, well, 200 years, but for sure the last 50.
Izzy?
Yeah, so thank you so much for that historical recap, because I just feel like that's what's allowed so much of the degrading talk towards Iran to occur. Like, just the facade of, I mean, not that it even matters, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not sure if I said it specifically this way, but I think people are so focused on the little micro details, as if it's really a war, when really it's not a war between countries, it's a war against the whole world, because who has the most nuclear weapons in the first place? Who cares if Iran has nuclear weaponry, in my opinion anyway, compared to the people who are in power and are affecting literally the entire globe. People who plan to use nuclear power to redirect the Suez Canal. I mean, people are still so focused. It's just going to keep everybody distracted. Whether it's our comfort from, the things that were mentioned earlier, like being able to still shop on Amazon and being able to just have, our little instant gratification things here and there, and, spewing propaganda. And then it was just really shocking to me, to be honest, especially seeing that clip on The View. Not that I watched that show, I just saw the clip, surface and talk about, but the women and oh, how backwards, and oh, how this and that. I was just shocked, to be honest. I just did not realize that that's how isolated a lot of Americans are, that they don't even realize that we wouldn't have language, and how much of science and how much education, and how it's more women than men that are educated, college educated, even Palestinians. And it's so funny because they're going to keep using the whole feminism trope, when it's because of the West's meddling and taking down the Shah and everything, that things became so much more extreme. Just like with Afghanistan, they didn't become they weren't so extreme before all of the Western meddling beforehand. So it's important that we remind people not to, tell them 2.0, like, it's just so it's just like I shouldn't be shocked, but of course, here we are.
I'm really glad that you made that point because it's like clockwork every single time. The faux outrage about feminism in the Middle East and dead fucking silent on the exact same issues in the West.
And also, where was the feminism the past 2 years when Iranian women were saying, "Hey, we're getting murdered over here. Can you maybe?"
Where were the women in the West?
Hey, they were not there. We even pleaded to animal lovers. We pleaded to environmentalists. We pleaded to teachers. I mean, you name it, we pleaded to. We're like, hey, anybody? Because this kind of involves everyone. The environment, that's literally all of us. Your tax dollars. You don't even care about animals. Your tax dollars. Nope. And then all of a sudden, all these feminists are like, oh, those women, they just really have to not wear their headscarf. They don't even really understand what the fight is actually about because it's so easy to eat up that propaganda. That's all it is. The women in Iran just want to show their hair. They just want to wear less clothes or whatever it is. That's what it just gets reduced to. So it's like the complete opposite of feminism at this point.
If I can speak on that, I think a lot of that has to do with dehumanizing. I think before we started the recording about today, but literally, don't Americans can't conceive of anything other than American views, right? And that's intentional. That's how they teach us education. When they talk about the Mexican American War, that's not what the rest of the world calls it. You know what I mean? That's only what the United States calls it. And so it's funny that I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's working exactly how it's supposed to be working. They don't want feminists in the West to care about women around the rest of the world because they don't see women around the rest of the world as actual women. They see themselves as women. And that is why we see such strong racial disparities in the feminist movement here in the United States. If you're looking Western feminism doesn't care about its own feminist policies, right? People are out here. I remember what I wanted to say earlier when I raised my hand. I'm just now getting back to it. But the signs at the protest, the No Kings protest, if Kamala were president, we'd be at brunch right now. How do you not see that's the problem? That's the problem. If you were going to be at brunch instead of fighting for people out in the streets just because it was a woman president instead, that you're the problem. You're the problem. If you're making cute little signs for protests while people are getting kidnapped and separated from their families, you're the problem. Why are you even protesting? Are you doing it for Instagram? Are you doing it for TikTok? Because you're not doing it for the people that you're protesting for, allegedly. Go ahead, Jordan.
Well, the whole fucking girl boss movement, right? You have the right to be a CEO, but you have no right to have autonomy over your own body.
I also think it's what we do in America is tell women what they want instead of asking women what they want. As a stay-at-home mom, which I was for many, many years, I can't tell you how many people told me what I wanted with my life. And I was like, what if I just want to choose to be a stay-at-home mom? Isn't that the most radically feminist choice to make, to decide to stay home and raise my kids and care for my kids? But nobody really wants to. Trad wives are taking over the internet. But it's just it's as a woman in I'm 43 years old, and for probably 38 of those years, I can just remember people telling me what I, as a woman, wanted. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be, all of these things instead of actually asking me. And I feel like that's what we're seeing with, the situation with Iran, telling women, oh, you just want to show your hair. You want to show your hair. You want to wear a bikini, right? Instead of actually asking Iranian women what they want. So I'll stop there. Or I'll go on.
And to kind of add to the part about we'd be at brunch, after we bombed Iran last week, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, tweeted, "Hey, thanks, great job for the boys for bombing Iran." Right? Hegseth had a press conference late after he made that tweet, and one of the women reporters in the audience asked him, "Why didn't you give credit to the female pilot that was was in one of the bombers?" And my initial thought was, I don't think that's the issue here. I think the issue is you're bombing Iran. I don't think the issue is that a woman didn't get credit for it.
They're literally doing the meme.
But I digress, because you guys should be the ones that tell me if I should shut the fuck up or not.
They're literally doing the fucking meme.
Right.
Doing feminism the wrong way. Yeah.
But also, like, when I mean, like, completely, like, the issue, sorry, my dog's barking. The issue is like the bombing of Iran, right? But also, what happens when you start pressing a man, like he went berserk on these reporters, even just acknowledge the question of, like, one of the men in this administration about, why is he not acknowledging women? He blows up. He goes, but he went to work.
Trump and saying, like, we wouldn't be here if Kamala were president. I can't tell you the amount you guys, that president for years, and she supported the funding of ICE that led directly to the ability for Trump to be able to be separating families and causing the harm that he's causing right now. Like, half of the policies that he passed, he was able to pass because of policies from Biden, from the fact that Biden even became president in the first place, I think, is ridiculous on its own. Why do we have so many old people in office? I am very excited about Mamdani out in New York. I'm hoping, I saw a statistic today that more young people are, like, young progressive people are going to be running for office statistically in the next election. So I'm very excited. I think he's causing a lot of conversations in our community across the board that about Palestine, Israeli nukes, but if you were gay and you went to kill you, the amount of time I've heard that as a queer individual, fucking crazy. If I went to Palestine and I died, it's because Israel bombed me, or an IDF officer shot me and highly statistically raped my body after the fact. Like, the reality of women and gay people and children in Palestine right now. If you want to have conversations about human rights, when we talk about feminism and we talk about queer rights, et cetera, like, you have to have a conversation about who's dying and who's not dying first. And the murder of those people. Like we said at the beginning, it all comes back to capitalism. It all comes back to following the money line. Who really is benefiting from these killings? And it's not us at the end of the day. It's not.
Sorry, I kind of lost track. Does somebody else have a hand up? Oh, I think it was
Yeah,
Izzy.
Izzy.
Everybody wants and grow their indigenous culture. Um, and then there's data breaches and all that, just to confirm things that I already knew. I am from the region, very much so from the region, you know. So yeah, that whole the washing and just giving the illusion that we're so cool, we're so progressive. Just the trad wife thing is what really triggered it for me, and just wanted to tie in how the erasure of Palestinians, especially Falahin, you know, the people who have been living off the land, people who have been, you know, living to where women are respected and are voiced. Stuff like
I think he wanted to move on next to the topic of. Oh, are you there?
Yeah, can you guys hear me? I'm having some signal
We can
issues.
now.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can hear you now. Yeah.
We can
Okay.
now.
Yeah,
Are you ready to start the topic?
yeah, I wanted to go into the history of how France actually helped Israel develop its nuclear weapons in the 1950s. I think it's important context. So this is courtesy of Al Jazeera. Israel is the only country in the Middle East with nuclear weapons. This is the story of how France helped lay the foundations for Israel's nuclear arsenal program. So Israel built its nuclear weapons in secret, and it had help. But why? In the 50s, France was worried that its colonial policies in the region could be threatened by Egypt's new leader. Gamal Abdel Nasser became Egypt's president in 1954 and was a champion of pan-Arab unity and liberation movements in Palestine, Algeria, Yemen, and Africa. France sent hundreds of engineers and technicians to build a nuclear reactor called Dimona in 1958 and plutonium separation plant for Israel in the Negev desert. This was done in secret under the guise that it was for researching desert grasslands and chemical processing. With rumors already swirling for years about its nuclear capabilities, Israel admitted to having a nuclear reactor in 1960. It denied building atomic bombs and said the reactor was used for peaceful purposes. And that's just a little bit of the history on that. We're probably going to have to do a part 2 of this panel, to be honest, just because we've covered so much stuff. But I'll go into the main topic that I wanted to bring up right now, which is the U.S. involvement, Iraq war rhetoric, and Iran similarities and differences. With the U.S. now directly involved in the Israeli-Iran war, what do you think will happen next? What are the possible scenarios? And is Washington's engagement limited? Why or why not? Sharon?
So I'll just touch on some of that. But, you know, I've been thinking a lot about where this could go over the past before now, because some of us did actually predict this happening since it's been kind of, you know, point of contention for so long. It was going to come to head at some point. And, you know, with Israel already having committed some hate crimes, you might as well just pedal to the metal, right? Like it's now or never. And it's, you know, I've got family back home, so it's just been constant on my brain, like what's going to happen, what's going to happen. And then reading all these testaments from these kids back home. And basically, as far as the Iranian mindset goes, there are a couple different routes this could go. The regime agrees to the deal and they've been the okay to keep being the complete buckets of shit they are. So they'll continue it and probably more than likely ramp it up as well. And in the past, 2 or so weeks, under the guise of all the other news, they've been heavily targeting anyone that's any sort of anti-regime, whether they've just made a comment online or they have any sort of affiliation, and they're grabbing them up and imprisoning them and ramping up at execution. So it's very scary what could happen if a deal is made, but it's also very scary what could happen if a deal is not made. More than likely, Israel will keep bombing Iran. That's what people understand to be the case, and nobody wants that. Everyone from Iran just wants to be able to fight for their freedom and just be supported from the outside. But now what we're seeing is they're supporting, some of them are supporting Israel bombing Iran because they think the regime is going to come in, the regime is going to leave and the Shah is going to come back. The Shah's son is going to come back. And so we're seeing out in the West, the Shah's son is shaking hands with Republicans, with Trump, with Netanyahu, and all of a sudden having so much more of an appearance. And all of a sudden telling all the people in Iran, doesn't matter what your politics is, let's all stand up together. Now is time. If you're in the army, if you're in the security forces, now is the time to stand up. Now is the time to get together. And then all of a sudden you've got an old ass general who's Iranian, who's in Israel, saying, yeah, everybody stand up. We're going to support you from Israel. Mossad will support you. Stand up. And so it's just this understanding that no matter where it goes, either the regime will keep destroying Iran, or we're going to be given a leader that's already sold us over to the West. So it's kind of a shitbag, if you will. I'm hoping there's a third route somewhere that people haven't been worried about yet, but that seems to be the current fork, if you will.
So I think Israel is a flat-out rogue state, and at this point, nothing short of a foreign military invasion and occupation of the country is going to stop their violence.
Yep.
All this consent, and I think they're just waiting. And as we've seen before, they say they're not doing something, and then they do a little bit. And if no one really says anything, then they do a little bit more. The regime does the same shit. They murder one girl. Oh, it's cool. We're going to murder more girls now. It's the same crap. And I think they're just waiting because at this point, it's kind of like it's come to head for both sides, right? The regime knows it's now or never. Either they're staying in power or they got to fight till their last tooth and they're on their way out. So it seems like it's kind of a volcano and everything is kind of coinciding all at once. So it's very hard to think of anything unprecedented happening.
Can I ask you one more question? Do you see a scenario of similar to Iraq where we actually have boots on the ground in Iran?
So from what I have been reading anyways, that is really the only way to actually do what they want to do. They wouldn't actually, what people are saying, be able to drive out the regime without being on the ground. I agree with that just because I think unless they sway the army to turn, they sway the security forces, the regime forces to turn at the very last moment, maybe if they see the regime falling. Otherwise, I do think they would need feet on the ground to actually achieve their goal.
And then I think it's going to be hard to dissuade service members considering the fact that we're weaponizing the military against our own citizens right now.
Yeah, I think the over complication of the situations and kind of over inundating people with things happening is kind of playing to everybody's benefit. So many people don't even really know what's happening on the other side. So if they do put boots on the ground, I don't think they would do it unless they had some sort of rallying from the people. And I think that's why they're having that. I mean, I've seen a couple different videos of either Israelis who know Farsi really well or Iranians who are Zionists who are in Israel and passing this propaganda to Iran of, we will help free you.
Right.
So, and we see what the freedom looks like when it comes from Israel or the Western colonial states. So it's not the kind of freedom that I know the youth in Iran want.
I honestly don't think that we are ever going to see boots on the ground. And when I say that, I don't mean that it's not going to happen. I mean that we will never hear about that ever, because you are never going to get the type of public support that you need. Because in the U.S. at least, you have people on the left and the far right, like Tucker Carlson and what's her name, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Taylor Greene. I never thought I'd agree with her ever in my life.
Yeah, and I've seen like an unbelievable number of people saying that, like, oh my God, I agree with Tucker Carlson on this. And so you have so much of like a political risk as as the U.S. government has. I'm talking about the people that are in power. It would be very risky to do something so unpopular in the country. But what I mean by that is people finding out about it.
The only way people are really going to hear it is from sources like you guys, as you hear it from sources like us. We hear it from sources that are actually on the ground in Iran. And I think that a lot of people here are seeing how much money we've now spent in the Middle East, and it's done nothing but just line the fat pockets of the fatheads. And I mean, it makes no sense. It's been, what is it, trillions, if not more dollars, and an obscene amount of deaths since 2002. And what has it done for the American people? Everybody's just getting poorer. And I think some people are worried that they're not going to get more money in their pockets. I'm really counting on those people.
Yeah, I would just push back on you slightly, Heather, in the sense that popularity has never dictated U.S. foreign policy.
Or Israeli policy, apparently. So
I agree, and I want to talk about that, but I think Izzy had her hand up.
Thanks. Yeah, I was just gonna say that first of all, the regime change is so much easier and more likely to occur first, in my opinion. That was the first thing that I thought once Iran was even mentioned once, because first of all, that's what it took in order for the scenario to be what it is, as far as everyone's despise of the Islamic regime. Just like they do with Afghanistan. Like, we keep forgetting that it was because of the West that it is what it is. And so it's easy to play on that, to be like, oh, see all the destruction and they're corrupt and all this stuff, right? So that's the first thing I think that would happen before anything else. As far as boots on the ground, it's like, what does it matter? We already have our boots on the ground everywhere else, and they're gonna keep playing the game of chicken when it comes to like nukes and all that. That's why they're hitting like the U.S. military base in Doha, and there's lots of other places in the area all around, that we are just gonna keep sending people to. Easy people to want to join, because they don't have their needs met, right? They don't have healthcare, they don't have whatever it is that makes it so appealing to join the military, So, and then I just wanted to add that, like, what else I think is going to happen. It's going to be it is going to be recruiting, whether you go to Iran or not. We just keep thinking in the micro perspective, though. We just keep forgetting that people are being used as pawns while we're simultaneously being silenced, while Palestine gets ignored, while we keep getting distracted with all these things here and there. But don't forget about even China prepping and practicing, if it's, I don't know what it is exactly that they're doing, prepping basically for a nuclear event. But hopefully that doesn't happen. But unfortunately, obviously, they're going to keep playing game and weaponizing everybody's fear. That's how they'll be able to accomplish just a regime change, because nobody wants quote unquote war, even though it's really a global war.
I don't think. Go ahead, Jordan.
I'll just make it real quick. I was just going to say the meme comes to mind, right? Like, if Iran didn't want war with the U.S., why did they put their country next to all of our bases?
Again, everything is in relation to the U.S. I don't understand why no one understands.
Right. Yeah.
Heather, I would like to think that the United States government wouldn't put boots on the ground and tell us about it, or like that they would put boots on the ground and not tell us about it because of fear of backlash. I would like to think they care that much. That's my opinion.
But I think like the sleeper cells and stuff, I think that would be reason to definitely be able to say, oh, but they're killing people over in the U.S. I mean, and sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but just to kind of throw in, there was also talk of not just sleeper cells, but of Iranians trying to, I don't know, cause sort of kind of be part of like the Islamic regime coming to the U.S. and different things like that. So I think they're building that sort of okay. So when they do, they can say, oh, but, and I don't know if you guys heard Israel, there was some intelligence that came out, and I don't know exactly, I've heard that it's legit, but I don't know if you guys have heard it from other sources, that Israel also had plans that if they didn't manufacture consent, that they would hit a major U.S. city and then try to blame Iran / the Middle East in order to manufacture that consent. So it really feels like they're pushing for it regardless of whether we hear about it or not. And I'm so sorry I cut off in the middle of you, Aleyah.
I think that Audra needs to go. I don't know if you're seeing this in the chat, Jordan. Audra needs to head out, so maybe we could let her have a second.
Yeah, plug your stuff, Audra.
All right. So, as you know, I study astrology and I teach it as well. And from an astrological perspective, like right now, the U.S. is going through what's called a Pluto return. And Pluto is the planet of destruction, transformation, reformation. And that return takes a few years to happen. It started already 2 years ago, I believe, and we're kind of in the height of things right now. So 2026 on an astrological record, especially for the US, is highly turbulent. These are some very turbulent cosmic waters, if you will. It's also that way in the rest of the world as well. But specifically, July 7th, we have Uranus transiting into Gemini. Yes, Uranus transiting into Gemini. And the last time this happened, the Civil War, the American Civil War popped off. So I'm going to say that first week of July is going to be incredibly turbulent with news reports and whatnot. I've been studying the astrology of the U.S. since 2020 and watching these trends literally fold out. The dystopian future, it's here now. So we've got to develop this level of stoicism and apply that to our mindsets. And really, it's about community. It's about helping each other. It's about building solidarity through the community and through citizenship and supporting one another. Because right now, the enemy is the government, and that's in any other 3-letter agency worldwide. So we've got some times that we're coming into that's going to be pretty volatile. And I think July is going to be kind of the showstopper of it all, at least astrologically. That's what's going to be talked about a lot in my network over there. But there's hope. We have to keep reminding ourselves that an apocalyptic future is not the end of the world. Apocalypse literally translates to rebirth, reform. We just got to start over again. And this is a great time to talk about a revolution. And a revolution can happen very quietly. It can happen within the community. It happens within our homes, and it happens within. So we have to be prepared for that proverbial fight. But the fight is really for humanity and for evolution to occur. It's for the future generations. But unfortunately, the people that hold the most power right now and the most money are those that are 70 plus. The good news is they're all going to be dead in 30 years' time, give or take. But the bad news is that we're going to have to go through some really difficult times in order to wash out these systemic problems that are occurring. So with that, I'm going to go have my late dinner. And thank you all for allowing me to talk and be here tonight.
Thanks, Audra. Have a good rest of your night.
Thanks, Audra.
Thanks.
I'm actually so glad that she went first because I feel a lot more validated in what I'm about to say, which was that I believe in 2026, mid-2026, prior to the elections, I think that Trump is going to start amping up the war effort, actually. So I think for right now in 2025, it's a strategy of Trump to be anti-war. He was anti-war during his campaign. He was allegedly anti-war, in quotes, in his first run, like the first 4 years of his presidency. I think that's intentional. I think the reason for this is because he knows that this is his second term. He has no way to remain in power if it's not through a war. I personally believe that Trump is going to try to hold on to his political position by announcing war and saying, oh, you guys know I tried for years. I tried for years to work out a deal. I pushed a ceasefire. I did all these things. Like, he's creating this public reputation for himself that he's anti-war. That way, when he loses midterms, because do poorly in the midterms, Republicans tend to do poorly in the midterms, we know that he's going to feel the anxiety inside of him that he is not going to be able to have the support that he needs to be able to run for a third term. Because we know that that was his plan originally. Like, anybody that's in like the political sphere can tell you that it's been Trump's plan to run for a third term since his first term running for office. That's why he started that's why he started saying all the kind of stuff about like the elections were rigged. He's intentionally creating distrust in the American community in our election cycle. That way, 2026 rolls around, he'll be able, exactly like Audra said, to be able to, kind of force us into a war that justifies him being able to not hold an election in 2028. I think 2026, as I believe Audra just confirmed for me in my head, I think that will be our last year of elections. I don't believe the American government will exist past 2028. That's my belief. And honestly, I think we should progress for 2028 elections, and more so focusing on what Audra said of building revolution in our community, talking about what is the world going to look like post-war, and what roles are we going to play in the war. You know what I mean? Every individual, exactly, Izzy. I think this is the perfect opportunity for a land back movement. The United States government is a colonial power, retaining power over indigenous lands today. Of tribes that exist and live on lands, the United States government is actively occupying that land. I think that we have an opportunity in front of us, unfortunately, as shitty as it is and as terrible as it is on our community as a world. I think that it's going to impact basically every aspect of our day-to-day lives, and I think it's up to us to decide what role in the revolution we're going to play, because it's no longer a question of if there's going to be a revolution. The question is, when is the revolution going to start, and who's it going to start with? We already saw Luigi Mangione allegedly murder somebody in healthcare, and that drastically improved the healthcare industry immediately for like the following 2 weeks. So it worked, regardless of whether Luigi or somebody else was the one to actually shoot the gun. It doesn't matter. Whoever shot the gun was right in what they did, and it helped Americans. And so we need more Luigis, and we also need people who are willing, for example, learn how to can people learn, and we need people to learn like basic life skills. Heather, I would love to hear your opinion on this. I'd love to hear, people need basic life skills these days because they're not teaching us in school, and we need to learn it now because there's not going to be a community for us to learn.
Well, I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but I would add that when we look at decades of telling women, especially, what we want to do, we should not want to be at home. We should not want to be raising our children. We should not want to be doing some of this trad wife shit, right? Like canning or growing food. We should not want to be learning to bake bread. We should not be wasting our time doing that stuff. We should just be buying the shit at the grocery store and going and working 2 jobs like everybody else. That I personally believe has been an intentional effort to unlearn things that our families and ancestors and everything have been doing for centuries.
And they're very communal, and they're breaking
Yeah.
our communities apart. Yeah.
Yeah. It's isolationism. It's to get us to not be able to do those things that would be necessary for survival in the event of, say, a revolution or an apocalyptic, world event. And I think that's intentional, personally, but
It's absolutely intentional because it requires reliance on the state apparatus. Like, if you can grow your own food, if you can take care of healthcare that's not attached to your job, you are ungovernable.
Right.
And when you're isolated, it's just like a cult, right? Like, you're no longer able to build those conversations and get together with people and share ideas and realize, hey, there's other people that think like me. it just kind of keeps you in your own bubble, and you're very easy to manipulate.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aleyah.
And oh yeah, you know, the situation with the economy too. Like yesterday, all these like local elected officials and business people got together and had Aleyah, I'm sure you saw it, this like press conference at the county to talk about how the immigration raids are impacting our local economy. And I'm just like bullshit. First of all, you all don't care. Second of all, yeah, just they don't care. And the to your point, Jordan, and I just lost my train of thought, but to your point, Jordan, if we don't rely on like work for healthcare, and we can just take care of ourselves and each other, they're screwed. So
I wanted to add one more thing too. I know we're all about to wrap up. I'm also all for the pew pew. I think that's another thing that we need to talk about, and probably in a part two of this panel, of like our roles in the revolution, and whether or not people should be getting guns and those kinds of things. But I think that's going to be really important right now, especially before they stop us from getting guns, because that's the next step. That's the next part of a dictatorship, is restricting access from us for food, water, and stuff like guns, ways to protect ourselves. Also things like bear mace. I've been seeing a lot of people say, like, I literally just watched a video. Oh my God. Oh, such a good video of somebody using bear mace on an ICE agent because the ICE agent refused to identify themselves. And so they considered it a kidnapping and used bear mace, and they got released recently. So very exciting. So definitely people need to be arming ourselves. Absolutely. That's the whole purpose of the Second Amendment. Like literally the reason for the Second Amendment was for a revolution. It was because the United States government didn't have a military. It didn't have a police force in the 1700s when the Second Amendment was being created. So they said, you need to arm yourselves to prevent from a tyrannical government. We have a tyrannical government. So if you were anti-gun in the past, you need to be pro-gun now.
Where are the pro-gun people, by the way? Like, where are they? I thought this was like your whole shtick.
They're
the Nazis, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, first of all, they're Nazis. But there is a website for anybody that's listening. There is a website, and it's the Rifle Association of like the Socialists or something like that.
Socialist Rifle Association. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And basically, if you go to their website, they offer free trainings on how to be safe with weapons and things like that, how to prevent accidents happening in your home, etc., as well as when you're going to need it and why you're going to need it. So I think that's really important. The reason that I freaking unmuted though was because, thank you so much for putting it in the chat. I'm just going to read it out loud. It's socialistra.org for anybody that's just listening on an audio. But what I was going to say last, because I know we're wrapping up on the panel, is that I have been seeing too many people talking about, and this is again because I said that I was here to roast my generation, so that's what I have to do. I have been seeing too many people of my generation being like, oh, I'm excited for war. Excited for revolution, that's one thing. I'm excited for revolution. Excited for war, that's another thing. That's you should be double checking before you post on TikTok. Like reread your post before you make it, because literally they're like, this is perfect because I won't have to pay rent. I won't have to go to my job. I won't have to do this. I won't have to do that. The amount of young Americans that think that just because you're in war, capitalism like cedes. People in Palestine are buying bread. They're not getting bread for free. They're buying it. What do you think? Yeah. What do you think? Do you think that capitalism just goes away because
I don't know where that sentiment would come from.
Down. You're gonna
Nazis even didn't go away. Like capitalism's not going anywhere.
I've remembered what I wanted to say about that bullshit press conference yesterday. So there was a press conference here in Ventura County, and it wasn't about the situation in Iran or international anything, but it was about the ICE raids and the immigration and its impact on our economy. And it was all of these local elected, like the mayor of Oxnard was there, and some parks and rec people were there, and some clergy, and you know, it was really an opportunity for them to stand in solidarity with the immigrant community, but at the same time do absolutely nothing and not actually provide like the general public with any type of education about what they should be doing to better prepare. They weren't like going out and handing out red cards. You know, my nonprofit, we got approved to do red card to get the free red cards, and we're actually out there handing out, and you have organizations like VC Defensa or the 805 Immigrant who are they're out there actually doing the work. They're patrolling the community. We've patrolled the community. My kids and I have gone and accompanied kids in La Colonia just as they're walking home from school just to make sure they're safe. But then you see these like local elected officials getting up there and just standing there and saying, oh, we stand in solidarity. Here's our happy statement. But they are not educating or actually helping at all. And so I think it's incumbent on like all of us to like know our neighbors and go and accompany those kids that may be in an area where ICE has been seen. Or if you see ICE, report it to a trusted organization. And fuck these people who are just having these performance events because they are doing nothing. They are doing nothing to help us at all. That's what I wanted to say about that.
I was just going to go on a quick rant about how Camarillo has always been a fascist society, and now it's overt. Like, we literally have Camarillo police acting as escort security for ICE agents.
For ICE agents. Oh, sorry, I didn't know I was unmuted.
I'm glad you weren't. Yeah. What the fuck?
Awesome.
You encompassed
Awesome.
all of our feelings. Like I was doing it and you were, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, we'll talk about availability offline because I want to do an extended conversation about Palestine and the ongoing genocide. But is there anything else that people want to bring up? I was gonna have it go for about another 15 minutes.
I have to go right now because my tattoo appointment is at 2 p.m. But I wanted to plug resources for future actions in VC. As Heather mentioned, a lot of politicians are talking the talk, but they're not walking the walk. So we need our community to be out there patrolling the streets, following ICE agents, exactly like Heather and her kids. Because if Heather and her kids can go out there and patrol ICE agents, then you fucking can too. So I don't want to hear any excuses and any reasons for why you can't do it if you're a documented individual, okay? But if for whatever reason you're not able to leave your house, or even if you are, there is multiple organizations. There are 3 different coalitions in Ventura County right now fighting for immigrant rights, okay? So if you want to be involved in any of those 3 coalitions, I suggest you join all 3. But if you want to, pick and choose, go shopping if you will, you can go to linktr.ee/VC, short for Ventura County, VC resources. That will give you a drop-down menu of all the organizations in Ventura County that are doing work for it. If anybody wants me to add links to that link tree, I'm more than happy to do it. But you should be able to have access to the hotline number to report immigration if you see ICE out there in the streets, who to report that to. Today at 5 p.m. in Simi Valley is Pride. I know there's Oxnard Pride as well. Simi Valley is also having Pride at 5 p.m. And 805 on DocuFund is coming out to give a legal observer training for anyone who wants to learn more about how to actually report and be successful in your reporting, and how to stay safe and know your rights when you do it as well. Because as we saw the video in Camarillo of oh my god, that video drives me nuts. But anyway, linktree/VC resources, check it out because you're going to find information on 805 on DocuFund, 805 Immigrant Coalition, VC Defensa, Get Loud Movement, Rise Simi Valley, all the organizations that actually have their boots on the ground and are actually doing the work that needs to get done, not just what the politicians are saying needs to get done, but what actually needs to get done. People are doing it. Okay, if you are also, I want to mention this as well. If you are a justice impacted immigrant, or you know someone who's a justice impacted immigrant, check out that link tree because there are resources as well as to how to get funding for a lawyer, how to get funding for free grocery errands for you as well, and also what was the last thing? Therapy. One of the organizations on that link tree just got a $250,000 $100,000 grant therapy to family members impacted by ICE. Okay, so the resources are out there. The community is already out there fighting. Are you going to be with us or not? That's what we need to know. To the viewers that are listening to us, are you going to be in the community with us? Because we're already doing the work. We just need you to come along. Come to Pride, get trained, etc. Go ahead, Heather.
I wanted to add to that for anybody that is watching from Ventura County, the phone number that you can text or call to report if you see ICE. They often drive in, gray SUVs, black SUVs, and white SUVs. But if you see them, you can call or text 805-870-8855. I've texted them a bunch of times. They do ask if you can pop open your camera and start recording, because that helps them identify the location and the vehicle. But again, it's 805-870-8855.
And with that, I'm gonna head out. Thank you guys so much. I love you all, and I'm excited to see you guys soon as my brothers and sisters in revolution.
Sounds good.
Bye.
This is a picture of your sister.
I wanted to also point out I have seen a video floating around of ICE actually removing license plates from their vehicles, in particular in California. So that's one other, thing to be aware of. Like, great to know the color of the vehicles, but also if you see one without a license plate, they probably are, there's a better chance it's ICE than if you saw one with a license plate.
Yeah, and a number of great comrades too are starting to publish information about where ICE agents are staying. So that's super helpful information. There's a number of local hotels that are being utilized, including, I want to say, in Camarillo, Heather.
And they've also been staying in Oxnard at the Staybridge, which is where the what's that team? The Cowboys normally stay. It used to be a Residence Inn, but I think that they got chased out of there. So
Good.
I believe they've gone to Camarillo.
Yeah. It makes me feel a certain type of way knowing that they're in Oxnard.
Yeah.
Come back. We'll go tag their places.
The really pathetic, and I don't want to get off topic, but the really pathetic part about this is, like, even the Republicans around here agree, like, fuck them, like, fuck ICE. Like, it's pretty bad if I have Republican neighbors who are coming to me and being like, yeah, fuck these guys, let's go fucking hunt them down. And I'm like, hello, who are you? But they're just, they have gone so beyond what is acceptable in this community. I mean, I'm not saying anything they were doing before was acceptable, but just they've gone so far beyond. So
yeah, I mean, I would look at that as a degree of class consciousness, right?
Yeah, I totally agree.
Anything else? You guys want to wrap up?
Did their respect projects?
What is it?
I can just mention that Freedom Hour Iran, once a week, 6 to 7 Eastern Standard Time. It's on WXOX. I also try to record and post online as well. Obviously, steering away from Spotify as soon as I find a good platform to post on. But yeah, every Tuesday, and we're going to try to talk about Iran. And I know there's a lot of interlink with Palestine, so I'm really excited to talk next week as well, or whenever we decide to talk again.
Yeah, next week would be great, but it'll definitely be in the next couple of weeks because I want to keep things as current as possible.
There'll be some news, I'm sure, in the next couple of weeks, with the talks next week and all of that. And and if I have any other stories after I come back to the U.S. too, I'll let you guys know. But thank you so much for having me here with you guys. It's absolutely a pleasure. What a wonderful group of people. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Guys, have a good one.
You too. Kraig, Izzy, do you guys want to plug anything before we go?
Izzy.
Thanks. Just one thing, if possible, I know there's out there and pages that are fundraising for Palestinians on the ground. But one of my top two that would really appreciate if you guys could amplify is um, the children's future, if you could donate to them directly, they actually get funding to Gazans, because as you guys know, food prices and everything are, I forgot what percentage by this point, 1,000%, I don't know, but unfortunately they are some areas are able to get food that they have stored, so that would be a great campaign to donate to them. And Ramun Foundation, RAMMUN, Ramun Foundation, they are also able to get water to Gazans in the north. So thank you so much. And yeah, I would love to be back. Thank you guys for having me. I really do appreciate it. You can find me at Izzy of All Trades on Instagram. And also I accept collaborations at We Are Whom It May Concern on Instagram.
Thanks, Izzy. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks. You guys too.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate
you. I guess that leaves it to me. Yeah. So I'm Kraig, host of Voice from the Left podcast, which has been on extended hiatus for a while now, but I'm not done. I just taking a break. But if you want to interact with me online, if anyone really feels like they need to do that, you can find me on Blue Sky at Dystopian Grift.
It's a great podcast. Definitely check it out.
Thanks. Or you can search Voices from the Left podcast on Blue Sky. It should pop up too.
Yeah, and I just wanted to give a shout out to our network, the Anti-Capitalist Podcast Network. If you're an anti-capitalist creator, you don't have to be a podcaster. Check us out. Our website is available. You can apply. If you're a writer, if you're an artist, if you have anything to promote that's anti-capitalist or anti-establishment in nature, we would love to continue to build our network. We'll shout out a few of my shows now. Bad Bitch segment, Green and Red. We've got, Liberate Mental Health is a new one.
Liberate Mental Health is one of our newer members, yep.
And we also have the Indigenous Network, I think.
Yeah, the Indigenous Nightmare Network.
Yes.
Isaac, he posts mainly on YouTube is where he does his live streams and stuff. We've also got Audra is a member. Audra, who is just on, she's a member. She's got a Substack. That's where she does a lot of her writings and where she puts out her Cosmic Report.
Revolutionary
Rhetoric.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's a podcast.
But yeah, we've got quite a few partners, and
we're big enough now. We're big enough now. I should write the list down so I don't forget someone. You can also find the Anti-Capitalist Podcast Network on Blue Sky. If you just look that up, it'll show up.
We do have a YouTube channel as well. I'll be uploading this panel discussion to that. So yeah, definitely check out our network. We'd very much appreciate it. As always, the 805 Uncensored is on all the major podcasting platforms. We're on social media. Give us a follow on Instagram at 805 Uncensored Pod if you're interested in being a guest, or if you have somebody you would like me to reach out to be a guest, DM me. Would love to hear from you. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night, morning, wherever you're listening in the world. Stay safe. Free Palestine. The revolution to you.
Bye.
Bye.